The vast majority of trafficking is domestic trafficking. It's trafficking of people who were born in the United States, who grew up in the United States. Experts estimate that as many as 300,000 youth are trafficked in any given year.
If you were to take every kid in 400 public middle schools, that's how many kids we're talking about. $32 billion worldwide for traffickers selling and trading humans into sex or labor slavery.
It is the third largest organized crime ring in history, preceded only by drugs and guns. But unlike drugs and guns, which can be sold only once, the human body can be sold over and over again. The average age of first exploitation is young girls 12 to 13 years of age.
Most people who end up in prostitution start out as children.
And it's very similar to domestic violence relationships, where it's hard to understand why that wife won't leave her husband, beating after beating after beating. And there's a trauma bond, and there's an emotional bond, and there's the psychological bond is so strong that it affects, the decision making on whether to leave and whether to stay.
I think about this picture. That day I probably slept with maybe 20 to 30 men.
If you get an older guy, younger girl, that's usually what happens in that situation, and they manipulate and control them.
The general public fails to realize that it started somewhere. She wasn't born that way. It started somewhere, and somewhere within that time before this point, she was a victim. She was a survivor before she even was sexually exploited.
But the usual treatment the children get when arrested is either jail time or probation.
We say that this child is a victim, and yet we send her to jail. Somewhere along the line, there's something wrong with that. Young people that we serve have been incarcerated and charged as an adult under the age of 16. And so they have this lengthy 15, 20, 30, 40 arrests, both as a juvenile and as an adult, for prostitution. And so when they go to apply for public housing, they're not eligible for that. When they go to do certain employment, that pops up in their background.
Her Johns and pimps were criminals. Her criminal record failed to acknowledge that she was a victim and prevented her from moving forward and contributing in her life.
But they don't always get the support they need because they are seen as just a prostitute. So the girls psychologically start to see their captor, who has repeatedly raped them, to break them in, as they call it, as a necessary friend.
Oh, they befriend you. They try to be your friend, tell you to go to school until you gain that trust, and then they manipulate a situation.
I didn't choose to stay in the life so I could sell my body. I chose to stay there because I wanted to be with a man that I thought loved me. I wouldn't even speak to the police because my mind was so brainwashed.
These are some of the most brutalized and victimized human beings among us.
If I could go back, just in magic, and go back and somebody would have walked up to me and say, "Why are you doing this?" And I could honestly, the honest factor would come out of my gut, I would probably say because I'm hurting inside.
Oh, the worst part was not being loved and to feel isolated and alone my whole life. There are people all around, and I didn't have a single friend or teacher or anybody that I could tell.
They're out on the street, they don't have resources, they don't have anyone to turn to in terms of guardians for food, shelter, anything, and these pimps, these offenders will prey on these children's needs for love and support and bring them in and start to care and nurture them or make them feel that that's what they're doing.
There's not enough housing for sex traffic victims at all. Around the country, there's 100,000, about 80 beds, which includes mine. That's it in the U.S. And so what they're saying is, for their safety, we will arrest them and put them in jail.
organizations helping them collectively have fewer than 100 beds to address the needs of an estimated 100,000 young children each year.
As more safe houses and shelters are needed to get these kid sex slaves away from the pimps and into nurturing environments.